Hello everyone, and I hope things are going alright wherever you are in the world. I'm Ghost, and today I'm going to be showing you my virtual deck profile for the January 2021 format. So this deck is still extremely powerful, and I guess is the budget option for this format, although Drytron might be the better combo deck. But anyways, let's jump right into it. So without further ado, let's get things started with 3 Lulu. This is your searcher for the deck. You have to play 3, I mean it's essentially search 2 because you can pitch Qinglong to search another. You then play 2 Nian instead of 3. This is the only card that doesn't special summon itself from the hand. I'll probably discuss this further in a later video where I demonstrate test hands and virtual combos, but I think this card is fine at 2. I see a lot of people play 3, but in my opinion that's not necessary. I then play the 1 Wheeler instead of the 3rd Nian. I've seen a lot of people cut the Wheeler, and I think that's incorrect. I think Wheeler is really good because especially going second, you get that extra destruction. Which can force out negates that your opponent might want to hold for higher impact cards like Roshi or Lulu. It's also an inherent summon level 3, which does come up especially in a lot of combos with more awkward hands. You then play 3 Gigi. This card's insane. You really want to make sure not to forget to use this effect in the end phase. Gigi lets you add back a virtual world from the graveyard except himself in the end phase, which is really good for setting up your turn 3 plays. You then play 3 Roshi. Roshi is like your monster reborn. He basically gets you VFD by himself in some scenarios, which is something to take note of because a lot of people will hold their Nibiru for after you use this effect, just because Roshi puts a lot of bodies on board, and if you haven't yet summoned out your Gossip Shadow, it's an easy, I guess, Nibiru choke point. You then play 3 Kirin. Kirin is like your double Foolish Burial. What you have to be careful with Kirin is sending the correct cards, I guess. Sometimes you won't actually need to send 2. So it's important to think about the cards that you want to have in graveyard ready for your turn 3. Oftentimes you'll already have used like your Qinglong, your Chuche, your Nian, whatever. So it might seem redundant to send another copy, but you got to remember, especially in this format which is very grindy, it's important to set up your turn 3 play as best as possible. So that's it for the monsters. Moving on to the spells and traps. So spells and traps, pretty standard lineup. You have to play 3 Kowloon. This gives you access to other virtual world gates. 3 Qinglong, this is your searcher by banishing engrave. Also negates, by banishing a virtual world engrave, you can negate the effects of a face or monster. I guess it's really good going second, especially in matchups against like Zodiac or Invoke Dogmatica. You can force out the negates early on. Then play 3 Chuche. Chuche is a really good card, especially on your end board going first. Having that destruction effect to not only reset your banished resource, but also get rid of, I guess, the normal summon, which is most of the time if you've got VFD and that resolves, that's the best your opponent can do. It's just really strong. Also paired with QV, this becomes like a paleo, you just banish a card on field, which is insane, especially against decks like Eldritch. So that's it for the virtual world side of things. I realize I'm going fairly quickly, but that's because I understand people might want a net deck. If you want to see more in-depth explanations of how you play through certain hands, don't worry, there'll be a follow-up video to this. So moving on to hand traps, you play 3 Ash. Ash is just all-round good hand trap this format. It's also a level 3 tuner, which does come up. Also level 3, so it will proc off Nian's effect engrave. 3 Gamma. Gamma's just really good. Oh, of course the 1 driver. Gamma's good not only because it negates monster effects, which don't necessarily need to be on field. So a classic example, you know, chain Gamma to an Ash on the Desires, stuff like that. But it also destroys, which means it gets rid of problematic cards which you'd have difficulty dealing with on board. So like, cards like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno are an issue for this deck because it's 3500, and if you don't have stuff like Chuche or Means of Removal and your opponent has negates, it's pretty difficult to get over a 3500 beat stick which just Book of Moons your entire field. Whereas with Gamma, you can get rid of the problem. Going first, Drive is also a level 6 non-tuner which can come up with awkward hands where you're missing the necessary materials to Synchro Climb. And then you play 2 Nib. So Nib isn't the most insane hand trap this format, to be honest. I'd suggest, if you can, to play 2 Triple Tactics instead of the Nib. But I can't afford Triple Tactics, I don't have them at the moment, so that's why I'm playing 2 Nib. I guess Nib is still a good hand trap because there is still a lot of people experimenting with, I guess, rogue combo decks like Dragon Link, Noble, Phantom Knights, Frankids. I guess they're not rogue, but not tier 1. And having that hand trap that's like a blowout against combo decks is still really powerful. So that's it for hand traps. Moving on to the consistency side of things. You play 3 Desires, you play 3 Elves of nearly anything, you're not really worried about banishing, and you can reset banish stuff with Nian's effect. So it's just basically a draw 2. 2 Foolish Burial Goods. You don't play 3. Why? Because even though I guess it's like a pseudo starter, seeing this card past turn 1 is not really good, because generally speaking, if you've managed to combo through, you'll have the necessary Virtual World spells and traps in graveyard ready. So drawing this turn 3 is kind of like a brick, especially if you've already got like Qinglong, Chuche and stuff in grave. Worst case is like an Ash Bait or a discard, which is not what you want to see. You want to draw into engine pieces which actually let you play. And then you play 1 Upstart and 1 E-Telly. Upstart to play 39 cards, and E-Telly because you play Psychics, it's a free extender. The reason why I suggest to play the Triple Dactyls is because this deck does have some bricking problems, and losing to yourself in a combo deck feels really bad, especially in a format where like if you don't put up a really good board, stuff like Dry Trump will just blow through. Then for the extra deck, I play the Exceeders. You play the 1 Gossip. This is the negate you want to end on, protect your VFD. 1 Fan. Card's really underrated. A lot of people have cut this from their deck. I think that's incorrect. It is true that you can't put Zeus over him. I mean, you can, but you won't have 2 materials because his effect does require detaching 2. But his effect is really strong. I mean, banishing 1 on the field and 1 in grave against decks like Eldritch, which is, I guess, the decks that this deck that Virtual World struggles more against, like decks that don't just hard lose to VFD. Being able to banish resource in grave to stop them from recurring past like turn 5, etc. is just really strong. And also it's like a gamma bait in a sense that if they don't read the effect and they forget and they're dumb, they walk into this, they gamma, they give you more extenders, they basically neg harder than you, so that's nice. You play M7. M7 is really good to get rid of problematic cards in your opponent's grave, also to reset cards in your own grave, and I guess it's oftentimes your Zeus target because it's 2700, the effect only requires detaching 1, so yeah. You then play the 1 Utopia Beyond. This is like your board wipe method. You pair this generally with the Stardust Charge. Stardust Charge can attack all face-up Social Summon monsters, and Utopia Beyond, not even face-up, Utopia Beyond zeroes out the attack of all monsters on field when summoned, which is really, really strong. This helps you deal with stuff like Dragoon, which is kind of difficult to deal with. And if your opponent doesn't pay attention to your plays, it's very easy for them to miss the fact that you have 2 level 6s and that you can easily go into this and just out their board. So they've got to be careful of that. Obviously, you play 2 True King of All Calamities. That's why this deck is good. I mean, this card is a blowout against almost every combo deck. If you call the correct attribute, your opponent just scoops most of the time. And then 1 Aezus. You play Caesars, so why not? Aezus just gives you so much advantage and lets you wipe boards so easily that it's just good. And also a lot of your Virtual World cards are live in grave anyway. Like sending Chuche and Qinglong isn't a big deal, whereas, I don't know, sending a bunch of, I don't know, like Drytron monsters, maybe not so much the case, but there are scenarios where you'll plus very hard off using Zeus. That's it for the Xyz. For the Synchros, you play Stardust Charge, Coral. This is like your draw package. Going first, this can help if you have awkward hands and you don't quite have enough combo pieces to get to your VFD. Do take note that if you don't need to go into these, don't. Because if, say you have the combo pieces but you get greedy and you want to get that draw, unless you know for a fact in some way that your opponent does not have hand traps, going into these can be like a pretty big waste, especially if you get like gammered. You lose the draw and you lose the body on the field, so don't get too greedy. Also remember, Coral Dragon going second, this does have an effect to destroy cards on field, which is really strong and does come up. And then you play Juju for removal. Juju is really good. It's a Virtual World name, so again, it's like a target for all your main deck monsters. For the Synchro 9s, you play a lot. You play the 1 Croc for draws, the Million Mech for removal, Castle Cloud to revive your level 9s. You play so many, so it's easy. 1 Shen Shen. Shen Shen is like really, really good. Most of the time you want to either have this on field on your end board or have this as one of the overlays for VFD. So when you detach, this is engraved and it can recur itself the next turn. A lot of decks struggle to deal with the, I guess, like pseudo macrocosmos effect, especially Link decks. Like Prank Kids really struggle to play against this because everything they do, their Prank Kids go to they just get banished and they just can't recur their resources from grave, which really hurts. And you play the 1 Qiaofeng. So I don't play the Qiaofeng loop, as it's been called, the double VFD turn 1, because it requires 2 cloud. I prefer playing the extra flex spot. So instead I use Qiaofeng as kind of like a, I guess, helping me play through awkward hands. Because if you have Chuche on board and you can get to Qiaofeng, Qiaofeng can search you Roshi, Roshi can special summon itself, special summon level 3 from grave, Cloud Castle, and then maybe VFD. That's generally what I use Shuffling for, and it's also a pretty high attack beater that can come up in some situations if you want to swing for game without walking into nib. Just before I move on to the side deck and some other cards I'd like to discuss, I just wanted to talk about this playmat that I've got here. So this playmat's from Magic TCG, which is an excellent UK vendor. I absolutely recommend that you go and check them out right now. And if you do, which you should, make sure to use my code GHOSTOracleCards5 for 5% off your orders. I'll also have the link that you can use to get that discount in the description below. You can get playmats, accessories such as sleeves, sealed product, even singles, so honestly, definitely check them out. So moving on to the side deck, this is, I guess, more preference based, but these are the kind of cards I suggest you play in a virtual world build, just because they'll help you play through the decks that this struggles to deal with. So you play the extra 1 nib. There are definitely matchups where you do want to see you want to play 3 nib. Like if you get put up against, I don't know, PKs, Phantom Knights, or Prank Kids, you definitely want to have that 3 nib because it's just a really good Handtrap to have. Going first, if you know you're playing against back row or annoying decks, Red Reboot is insane. Like setting this card, going second into Eldritch, playing this card going second into back row is just insane. I know it's a one-off, but trust me, when you see this card against back row decks, it feels so good. 1 Duster, 3 Cyclone. This is for glue. You really don't want to walk into stuff like Ice Dragon's Prison. This also gets rid of Eldritch spell traps, which can be a problem if they grind you out, but in general, glue is annoying. We want to get rid of it, so that's why we play those. You then play, this is basically like the anti-Drytron package. You play the 2 Ghost Spell and the 3 Draw. Like, these cards are just really powerful against Drytron. You might see, like, why am I not playing 3 Ghost Spell and why am I playing 3 Draw? So with the side deck, it's really important to think when you make it, am I realistically going to side 3 of this card? So in the case of Draw, I can say for a fact that there are a lot of instances where I definitely want to have 3, but with Ghost Spell, I kind of don't want to because, yeah, it will come up against Drytron, but Draw is higher impact than Bell. Bell can be high impact with like awkward Drytron hands where they need to put something in grave, but like Draw just ends turns sometimes, so it's just really good. And Draw comes up against other decks. Instead of playing 3 Draw, what I play, I guess, is a graveyard hate alternative. I play 2 DD Crow. I mean, I think DD Crow is actually pretty underrated this format. Banishing Eldritch cards is really strong. Banishing Drytron names is really strong. Like, remember, if you can, I don't know, if they link out their alpha into Linkaribo so they can have the effect Live Engrave, just banish the alpha, basically does the same thing as Ghost Spell. And DD Crow is not once per turn, so you draw multiples, it doesn't feel bad. And then you play, to finish off the side deck, you play 2 Lancia. So again, you really want to think when you make the side deck, am I realistically going to side 3? Personally speaking, I'm not going to side 3 Lancia. The only real deck that I want to see Lancia against, I guess, is the Virtual World matchup, the Mirror. But in that case, I'm already playing things like Gamma, Ash, Nib, Lancia. I've already got enough stuff that like hurts Virtual World really bad that I'm not too fussed about drawing 3. Lancia is good, don't get me wrong, but it's just that kind of card that I wouldn't side 3 of, so that's what you have to take note of when you build your side deck. I guess another side deck option that you could play, which I'm not because I don't have them, is Droplets. Droplets is good, especially, I mean, Droplets is probably one of the best cards to see going second against Virtual World, because unless they have, like, I don't know, multiple hand traps in hand, I don't know how they have that many, but if you Droplets on the VFD and whatever else they have on board, you can easily just blow through everything, and if you're playing Virtual Worlds yourself, it's not too difficult to OTK. Droplets is good against Drytron, but not insane. It is true that you can negate the Ruler and the Ultimatus, and they can't respond if you send monsters. But because Drytron search so many Herald cards, like they'll generally have like 2 Heralds and an Eva in hand, or sometimes even better if they open well. So you're still playing into 2, if not 3 interruptions. So shutting off the board isn't that insane. You'd rather see draw and stop the combo from happening anyway, because whether they have hand traps or not, they'll also have all the Drytron names engraved, so they can play you to turn 3 and easily set up their board again. So that's why I don't play Droplets. I mean, I think I probably would if I could, but anyway. Moving on to some cards that I don't play. I don't play Breaksword. It's 2 level 3s, Destruction. I have so many means of removal already that I just didn't feel Breaksword was necessary. It's also, I can't really go into Zeus with this because its effect requires, I'll generally destroy itself for its effect. It's just, It's not insane in this deck. I know some people like him, but I personally don't. I don't play Long Long. Long Long is just not a great card. I don't think anybody's really playing Long Long, but if you are, just don't. The negate effect hardly ever comes up. It can in some situations, but it's just not worth your time. Play Gossip instead. I don't play Jar Jar. Some people have opted to play Jar Jar instead of the Utopia Beyond. I think the argument here for why Utopia Beyond has generally, like, the consensus here is that Utopia Beyond is just better. The reason being that Jar Jar, what you do is that you crash it into something and it banishes, but that's removal for one card. Utopia Beyond, you can zero out the entire board and get rid of like multiple problematic cards, that's why. And then just to touch upon this a little bit more, I know I already talked about it, I don't play 3 Nian. As I said, Nian doesn't special summon itself from hand. I don't want to see multiples of this. I do understand that with awkward hands you do need the virtual targets, but in my experience so far, and I've been playing this deck a lot, like both on DB rated and in remote duels, I've never really come across hands where it's like unplayable. And generally speaking, like 3 Nian just didn't come up for me. If you want to play 3, by all means go ahead, but I'm not. So anyways, that's it for the deck profile. Stay tuned for the combo video, which will be coming up. I guess we'll include test runs as well, because there are some, I think some combos that I really want to show you guys that how I think virtuals should be played, and the best way to set up that VFD with Gossip, which is basically your objective in hand. So yeah, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video with a friend if you enjoyed it, and yeah, I hope you have a great day.